This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast. Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, I'm Denise Gustafson, Editorial Director for Printing United Alliance, and the guest host for the special Printing Impressions podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month, highlighting women in the printing industry. During this series, I'll have the opportunity to talk with women from all segments of the industry about their experiences and their journey as a woman in the industry. So today it's my pleasure to welcome Tracy Swan. She's a Senior Manager of Visual Production with Macy's. So Tracy, welcome.
Thanks, Denise. Really great being here. I appreciate having this conversation today.
I'm really looking forward to it. But first, I have to ask, what do you do as a Senior Manager of Visual Production? So what does that really entail for you?
Let me actually back up a little bit from there. So my career is actually on the client side of printing.
Okay.
That's what I've done since I, many years ago, graduated from RIT and started out as a graphic designer and then an art director in New York. I was a colleague working in the marketing department for several big box retail brands, doing their packaging design and their sales presentations. And I actually joined Macy's almost 18 years ago, and that's really when I was fully immersed into print production. So today, as the Senior Manager of Visual Production, it's in our marketing organization for Macy's. I get the privilege of leading a very talented group of colleagues that impacts our company brand by supporting the in-store presence and the communication to our customers through print production, through operations, financial planning, and this is all for the Macy's visual team.
Very cool. So that's a lot of stuff that you are responsible for.
Yes, it is.
When you look at it, and like when you say it, it's just like this. It's a ton of stuff.
It is a lot of things, but like I said, I have such a great team that supports me, and we do such exciting work. We get to see what we produce every day in the stores, what our customers are seeing. We are working on the distribution list that help out all of our support teams out in the fields because they're the ones that have to put all of those things up. So yeah, it's really exciting.
So for you, I'm guessing that you are basically running Macy's in-plant, more or less, because you're doing the production there?
No, actually, I have a very small group, but an amazing group of print suppliers that support all of that production for us.
Okay, cool.
So my team is navigating those partnerships with those suppliers.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it's because how you were talking, like, are you actually producing it in-house or... Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're working with partners on the outside to produce everything that you're coming up with. So basically, in a way, you're kind of the print buyer and specifier.
Yeah, in a way, I guess you could look at it that way. That's why operations comes into play, because even though we're not sitting on the floor in those print shops ourselves or hand in hand, side by side with the suppliers, we are managing the operations with them to do all the proofing and production and distribution exactly how we intended it to look in stores.
Okay, gotcha. So now you said you went to RIT.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some kind of print background there that you were looking to get into. I mean, how did you get kind of started? Well, what made you go down that path?
Well, I will tell you, Rochester, although, I was into skiing way back then and I thought I was picking the right school because I was going to get to ski all the time, which I did not do. I did some skiing, but not a whole lot. It is cold and snowy out there. And yes, Rochester, as I learned when I was there, is a very old, big area for print. Xerox and Kodak both originated out in Rochester. That was not where I thought I was going. I actually thought at some point when I was out of school, I was going into the advertising world. And when I got out of school and started looking, when I came back to New Jersey and looking in New York for a job, I realized that wasn't the world that I wanted. I was very fortunate, and this is actually thinking about it now, this is actually where networking started for me, that it was the connections that I already had through friends, through family, and through the companies that I wanted to look at, that I got my first job in doing graphic design. And again, that was for one of those big box retailers that we would all know the name of very, very well, that I worked on all of their packaging design from that day one. And since then, that's where it kept growing.
Kept adding to it, learning, and just
Mm-hmm.
grew from there.
Absolutely. I had some really great leaders back then who taught me to believe in what I was doing, that trusted me to do my job, and actually gave me the platform to be able to speak in those conversations and not just be the taskmaster to do the layouts that needed to be done. I was able to share my voice in the conversations and give my opinions and points of view. It was an awesome start to what I do today.
To have those kind of role models or mentors in certain
Mm-hmm.
ways, they help everyone as we're navigating, especially as we're starting out.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my very first mentors in my career believed in me so much, and I believed in him so much. I followed him to, I think, 4 companies.
All right.
But, he also gave me opportunities. So it was a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Now, a question about the advertising route that you didn't take.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you go that way? What was it about when you came
Yeah.
out, you thought that was where you were going to go? What made you change your mind?
When I started learning about it, and believe me, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody who loves the advertising world. What I realized for me was, at the time, all of the pressure, the hours, the stress that I didn't necessarily want at that young age. I love challenges, and I love to be able to be part of the process in design. But what I was learning about that pressure just was not for me.
Mm-hmm. So in a way that ended up being that fork in the road for you, whether,
Yeah.
it was a
I
decision
mean, now,
point.
ironically, I'm sure if you ask a lot of people today, they'll say, it's interesting that you said that back then, because the challenges that come to me every day today come with stress, and I handle them, I believe, quite well, and actually thrive from challenges. So it's interesting what I wasn't drawn to back then versus what I'm drawn to now. Sometimes there is an overlap.
But the one big difference is you have experience under your belt now.
Absolutely. Yes, I do.
So I think that makes a really big difference in regards to those stressful situations. Back when you
Mm-hmm.
were starting, everything was going to be new. You're learning, it would be by the seat of your pants in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've seen some of these situations. You've heard about some of the situations if you haven't experienced them personally, but you have the experience of doing the job and doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
that it makes it, yes, it's still a challenge. Yes, it's still stressful, but it's a very different kind of stressful, I think.
Not going into advertising, I can't talk to it to see what the outcome would have been if I kept continuing in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel good that the direction I'm in and the direction I've gone through in my career was the right one for me.
Which is good. In the career that you went with
Mm-hmm.
graphic design itself tends to be a little bit more mixed when we're talking about genders. At least I know for me, from in dealing or talking with people on that side, it tends to attract a lot of women because it's very creative. Is that something that you saw as you were kind of moving through like package design, or was it a little bit more heavily male? I honestly don't know, which is why I'm asking.
Well, I will tell you, and you're actually bringing this to light for me a little bit, because I will agree, based on the companies that I've worked for in those departments in graphic design, it definitely was more women heavy, in a good way, because I was able to learn from those people and understand what I did or didn't like from that talent. Being able to bond with those people from a very early age was amazing. The other part of our team was actually the sales group, since we were working with the brands. That tended to be a little more heavy on the male side, not every company, but yeah. So the graphic design group, I've been very fortunate enough that was female dominated.
Like I said, it's really interesting because some of it, a lot of women are attracted to creative positions. So it's not really a surprise to see that. But then you
Mm-hmm.
have the sales, which was more heavily male. They
Mm-hmm.
tend to be that aggressive. Those people that are extroverted, they go get the sale.
Mm-hmm.
They're the hunters. They go. But it is interesting in that regard just to see that those almost stereotypical roles were evident
Mm-hmm.
then. Has it changed as you've moved through your different companies that you've worked for, the different positions that you've worked for? Has that kind of balance changed for you and who you're working with now?
It has. When I joined Macy's, the balance was different than what I experienced in the departments that I had worked for at all of those different brands in a good way, because I had that opportunity to have the camaraderie of the women in the company and on the team, but I also had the opportunity to have that balance of men in the company and on the team as well.
How do you make sure that your workplace is inclusive, that it includes diverse voices,
Mhm.
whether it's gender, race, whatever designation you want to talk about? How do you ensure that that continues to be the standard?
For me, I really believe in everyone having a seat at the table, everybody to be able to participate and have a point of view to collaborate in the conversation. As a leader and actually as a mentor for Macy's, we have these colleague resource groups. Women at Macy's is one of the ones that I belong to. And I have the great opportunity to be a mentor in that group. That's how I take those opportunities for myself to be able to encourage everybody to be part of the conversation, to bring all of their ideas, and not every idea works, but we want to encourage everybody to keep bringing more of those to us. That's how we find all the successes. That's how we really thrive and build that camaraderie together.
In a certain way, too, you mentioned that you've had the opportunity to mentor others.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think that when you are in situations like that, when you're mentoring someone, especially someone younger that's coming up, there's so much of an exchange of knowledge from an older generation to a younger generation that helps. I think it helps to understand where the new generation is coming from, where some of those new ideas might be coming from, and how the younger consumers see the Macy's brand, see what you're doing for visual communications, while still honoring the traditions that are longstanding. The mentor sometimes learns as much as the mentee in those relationships.
So I've said so many times to the people that I get to mentor and the people that I even encourage to find a mentor, I learn as much from them as much as I really appreciate and love that I get to share my voice and give them a voice in our conversations. I learn from them all the time.
And sometimes it's interesting to see where those new ideas come from, how it's a
Absolutely.
combination of the new and the old. And
Mhm. Yeah, from in WAM, when I've mentored these groups, we have what we call a mentorship circle, and we have these small groups. What's really awesome about it is that you have so many diverse thoughts and even diverse personalities. You get the opportunity for each of them to the people who are really bold and brave and take risks every day. And then you've got the individuals who are a little more quiet and are trying to find their voice. For them to have this safe space to talk about what's on their mind and be able to think about things in a different way for all of those people just by having a conversation together, it has been so amazing to be able to moderate and coach and lead that group of women within the organization and outside of it.
So, how important is that kind of networking? Obviously, you have women in Macy's. How important
Mhm.
is that kind of networking for you personally to help build your professional brand
Mhm.
and even help with the company as a whole?
In general, networking and leadership is kind of goes hand in hand for me. I really believe that both of them are so important. It is a way for us to stay connected. It's a way for us to find those like-minded people that otherwise we might not find for ourselves. And it gives you those different views to grow and learn from. In WHAM at Macy's, I've definitely encouraged the women that I talk to be courageous, to make new connections, and even find ways to maintain those relationships that are so important to them. I am also a really strong believer in building a personal board of directors. That board is the group of individuals that really holds you accountable and even provides guidance and advice and support in your personal and professional life. They can change over time. It's not always the same people throughout your life or throughout your career because it depends on, what's going on in your life at that time. But these are people that you lean on, that you learn from. And I encourage anybody that I'm mentoring or that I'm leading to find those people for themselves, that they can find those safe spaces to talk to each other. And networking really comes in endless forms. It's not just that one-on-one in person. Sometimes it's, who are you following on LinkedIn and what are they saying today? I've actually challenged and encouraged the people that I mentor to just go online sometimes and who do you want to know? Who do you want to hear? What are they telling you? And that might even give you the next person that you want to learn from and listen to. You're working at a company that gives you the opportunity to become a part of. At Macy's, I have a really great opportunity in that the company has what we call colleague resource groups, WHAM being one of them that I am a member of. There's so many of them, whether it's sustainability or a minority group that's important to us. We have so many of them, and I know there are other companies that have a similar structure in them. What they do for our colleagues is really build a trusted, safe space for these individuals to have a conversation together and to really build a solid foundation of other colleagues that they can learn from, grow from, find mentors, find peers that in other ways they would have never met because they're not necessarily on the same teams. But it's definitely another way of networking if you've got those opportunities within your own organizations.
One thing that you said that really stood out to me was having a personal board of directors. I had
Mhm.
never thought of it that way. But my
It,
question is, where do you find those board of directors? Is it within the company? Is it external? Is it friends? Is it family? Is it all of the above?
I will be honest, it was actually a term that was completely foreign to me until about 5 years ago. It was through another organization outside of the company that I belong to for retail that has really proven to be a helpful resource for me to meet people, to they have fireside chats, they have events. It's been amazing. And one of those fireside chats, just like we're having a conversation right now, one of the questions was, who's on your personal board of directors? And I'm like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
I Googled it right away. I didn't know what that was. And when I started learning about it, it made so much sense. Yes, it could absolutely have one of two of your mentors in that group, but it was so much more than that. These are the people who are going to make sure that they hold you accountable, that really become your North Star. They are the people that you trust in so many different areas. And it can be personal or professional. It can be anything from you want to change your career direction and you have a couple of those people on your board that are going to have those honest heart-to-heart conversations with you and make you think. Or it could be a personal situation that's going on in a different respect. But these people and these friends, colleagues, mentors, whatever they are, however they come into your group, become so essential in helping you grow in so many different ways. And ever since I've learned about this term, and like I said, I Googled it and I couldn't believe the amount of articles and links and all of that was live that, that were available that I never knew was there for me to find. Since then, I have used that term and given encouragement and advice to the people I mentor and lead to do that for themselves.
I have to say that was the first time I heard it, but when we finish this conversation, I think I'm going to be Googling the same thing and go down that same rabbit hole. So trust me on that one. So thank you. I
I
love
encourage
learning
you
these things.
too.
So kind of changing our trajectory a little bit with our conversation, we've touched on leadership a little bit already.
Mhm.
Why do you think it's important for women to be in leadership roles within the industry?
One of those reasons, quite honestly, is so we have a balanced voice at the table. We have our perspectives in the conversation as much as anybody else who's already been at that table for quite a long time. I feel like we have a lot to say. We have a lot of experience, and we deserve to be in those conversations, making those decisions, moving things forward just as much as anybody who was there before us.
As part of that, how important is it to have women represented in leadership roles?
I think it's very important, especially when new people coming into roles or into companies that are looking for mentors and leaders to look up to learn from while they're trying to develop their careers. So, as a woman who is a leader in our company, I think it's very important to be able to have that opportunity to coach and guide and lead those newcomers and the people who have even been there for a long time, to have diverse perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to bring different ideas to the table. And as a woman who has the opportunity and the great fortune in my department to be able to share my ideas and bring all these amazing things to life with the stores, I want to give everybody on my team as many opportunities as I can. To be able to advocating is so important to me too.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you are sitting in the same room as somebody who you truly believe in, who you see that spark from and that drive, I want to be able to give them those opportunities even when they're not sitting there next to me, to be able to advocate for them. I've had so many great people in my life who have been the mentors and leaders, but I've had great advocates too. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for some of those people. I really appreciate having that opportunity as a leader, as a woman, to be able to do those things as much as leading and coaching the people in front of me.
So I'm going to go back to something that we were talking about pretty early on in our conversation, talking about the demands of work, the demands of a career. One of the reasons you decided not to go into advertising was for the long nights, was for all the things that you were seeing at that point in time. But obviously, the role you picked, as you mentioned, still has its own stresses. I'm sure it has its own long hours in certain regards. You chose that career within the printing industry. How do you find the right balance between your professional and personal life?
I will be completely honest. I don't find it every day. Ask anybody on my team, ask some of my leaders, and they will definitely say the hours that I do or the work that I put in, it's amazing that I thought that advertising was too much at the time because but I think from all of those hours and from everything that I do every day, it really comes from the passion that I have for my role. I love problem solving. I love a challenge. I thrive from those things. And in my role, from the creative side and even from the financial side of what my team is responsible for in Macy's Visual, I don't mind sometimes putting those hours in or putting that extra work into what I do because it's so rewarding to me to be able to see the biggest challenges get solved with my team and even with my supplier partners. That, and partnership is something I truly believe in with my print suppliers because that's how we are successful. Seeing that in store after everything that we've done is so amazing. Being able to walk in and see what you've created and what the customers are going to see is so exciting to me. So balancing, I try as best as possible to be able to shut things off when I know that I need to make sure that I am taken care of. Personally, I'm getting I have an adorable little dog that definitely reminds me sometimes it's not all about me, it's about her too. And that's okay. And getting those other things, being able to do those things in your life that are important to you outside of work, it's okay to me sometimes that it's imbalanced. But I do the best I can to make sure that I'm doing everything I need to do for myself personally.
It's a challenge I think that every woman has.
Definitely.
Because there's so much asked of us.
Yes, there is a lot asked of us, but there's definitely a lot asked of us. And it's our job, it's our role to make sure that we can say no as much as we can say yes. That we are able to shut the job off when it needs to be shut off. And it's not always easy.
I was going to say, it's easier said than done.
100%. But it's important.
For our own sanity, I think it is.
For so many things.
Yes.
But yeah, sanity, definitely.
It's hard to make that balance. And in some ways, I think it could be getting harder for a lot of women entering now because for some of them, they might want families. They might want to be married. They might want the career as well. And then how do you balance all of that, especially now if you have children with daycare, and it just starts layering on top of each other. So it's even more difficult now than it was probably 5 or 10 years ago, especially from a financial side for the family.
You agree from the outside because I don't have kids, but I definitely see and hear from the people that I know making those tough decisions. I hear some people say choosing to work versus paying to have the support from outside of the home with their families. So I completely empathize with what they are trying to figure out for themselves. Again, that's not my road, so I don't have a lot of personal experience with what's happening except from the outside listening.
I'm in the same boat as you, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, but all of those decisions are tough to make. But again, just going back to realizing where that line is of figuring out what is the most critical and most important to you and being able to say no when something is not in your best interest, whether it's the job is no because I really want to be home with my family, or the answer is yes, I can balance all of this and do the best that I can. And sometimes I'm going to fail and sometimes it's going to be a huge win, and that's okay.
And sometimes the answer might be yes, but not now.
That is true. Absolutely.
Because I think that's something that even I've battled with too. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I want to do it, but it needs to wait a day because then that's when I can actually give it the time it needs.
or it's going to take a little longer.
Yeah.
I want to do it for you right now. I want to be able to provide what's needed immediately, but I know in my heart of hearts, it's going to take a little longer to get it right.
Yeah.
To do what needs to be done in the best way possible.
Yeah, exactly. So wrapping up, one of my favorite questions that I ask of everybody is knowing what you know now. So based on your career within the industry, what advice would you give to yourself if you were just starting now?
Here's actually how I'm going to answer the question. Here's what I would tell anybody starting out, knowing what I would want for myself. And what I actually try to encourage anybody who I'm mentoring or leading and speaking to think about for themselves. Always be willing to learn. Admitting that we don't know everything is okay. Being vulnerable to be able to say that, to be able to share that is okay. But being open to new ideas and wanting to learn is really important in your long-term growth. Ask questions, ask for challenges, and ask to participate. We all want a seat at that table, but the way to get there is to be open and inquisitive and ready for those challenges and those questions that we should be asking to get that seat. A big one that I say all the time that I learned a long time ago for myself is be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Take the risks. It's knowing that you're comfortable with being uncomfortable is going to get you more opportunities. You're going to learn from the failures, but you're going to thrive from the successes. Find your circle. Like I was saying before with networking, and find those peers, find those leaders, those mentors that inspire you, that encourage you, that are going to help you through those questions and those tough days and those tough months and tough years, whether it's personal or professional. Build that board of directors that we talked about. You're going to realize how much it can help you in so many different ways. Those questions that you would have thought that you have to figure out all by yourself, and sometimes you're stressing over what you're going to do, that personal board can be so instrumental in helping you not only figure out the answers to things or guide you to your own answers, but they push you to think about things in a way that you might not have done it on your own. And fill out that network, whether it's a social media outlet or if you have the opportunity to have a colleague resource group within your organization or any of the on LinkedIn or any other area where you can find like-minded people or people who challenge you in a completely different mindset, that create that safe space for you to share and develop your own voice. And then make sure that you're putting in the work to maintain those connections. There are some times that even in the groups that I mentor, there's a person that they used to love talking to all the time, or they learned a lot from, and they've lost that connection. Now they're trying to figure out how to build it back. Put 15 minutes on your calendar every month just to check in with yourself, to network, to do something. It's not something we always think about, but it's such a simple thought to be able to remind us to keep those connections alive.
I think
those are the things that I think I would say to myself or anybody else who is starting out.
that's a lot of really good advice.
Thank you.
Now I have to see how I can put all of that advice into use for me.
Like you said, it's easier said than done, right?
It is.
Yes, I have to, and that 15 minutes on the calendar, I'm not kidding. I do it for myself. It was something that I had thought of through conversations with people who I mentor, where we were all challenged with being able to do for ourselves the same way that that to-do list works for our workload. But it's such a small thing to do for ourselves that keeps that progression going. between that and being really open to taking risks and asking for those challenges, I know they've helped me, and I'm certain they would help so many other people be encouraged to grow from where they are right now.
And I think I agree. They would certainly help many, many people to be able to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tracy, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you, Denise. It was amazing talking to you. I really appreciate this opportunity.
I really appreciated the time you had and the really amazing conversation. I've learned quite a lot in this podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.